say that a week is a long time in Canberra, but 90 years is barely a blink of an eye in Newcastle. So anyway, I'm sitting with a communist having a cup of coffee. They're kind of exotic in Newcastle. She's from the Communist Party of Australia. She's their communist candidate, and she's in election mode.
Let's turn to Brenda Kellaway. Brenda, what is the Communist Alliance?
Our basic philosophy is to more evenly distribute wealth among the general population, and some of our policies, for example, are for full employment, for free education, free healthcare, subsidised housing.
Anyway, she tells me her parents were communist, and her grandfather was kind of big in it too. Some kind of union official or something. Sounds totally pedigree. I wish my family background was so uncomplicated. And I'm thinking, fuck, I wonder if they're the same generation as my parents. And I wonder if they're from Newcastle. What if her father worked at BHP? That would have meant her family and my family were. Let's not go there.
Get the commies! That way. That's one. Get the commies! After them, boys! After them!
We were brought up totally opposite. She was brought up communist, and I was brought up Catholic in Newcastle. It was really strong religious stuff, and we were always taught to kowtow to the priests and the nuns. Girls were always taught to be passive. Their reward would come in the next life. And it was good to suffer a lot, so you'd earn more credit in heaven. I remember one nun in primary school telling us, the communists are coming, the communists are coming, who'll stand up and die for Christ? They'll smash our holy pictures and destroy our crucifix, and they torture missionaries in China. So all the boys in the class are going, yeah, we'll stop the communists. We'll fight for Jesus. This is a picture of me and my family in church. Just before I reached puberty. There's a premonition of fear in my face. And you can see the parish priest that sexually assaulted me, Father Lachlan Larkin.
I imagine, though, that you might have a bit of a brand problem with a party called the Communist Alliance. I mean, for many of us, communism conjures up images of Joseph Stalin, gulags, Mao's Great Leap Forward, and so on.
We always hear about the terrible things the communists did. Soviet tanks rolling across Europe, gulags, etc., etc. But in all the history books and news reports, I've never really heard about the terrible things that happened during the Cold War in Newcastle. A veil was lifted for me, only for a short time, but it was enough to see there was some really bad stuff happening. Even though it happened mostly before I was born, it did involve members of my family. I remember in the 60s, when I was only 9 or 10 years old, I overheard my father and uncle talking together. Dad was saying something like how the communists seem to be taking over everywhere, all the unions seem to be full of them. Then my uncle, who worked at BHP, said, well, we fought them off at BHP. They won't be coming back in a hurry, not after we got through with them. Dad went very quiet and said nothing. I don't know if he approved or disapproved, but at any rate, he acquiesced. I'd like to think it was a fair fight, where they said 10 of your best men against 10 of ours, and we'll see who controls the shop floor. But somehow, I don't think that really happened. I think maybe it wasn't a fair fight. Years later, I met a guy, Ross, who wrote a history of the Communist Party in Newcastle. And he was talking about how, when he was researching the book, he was interviewing a widow of a communist from Newcastle. And he burst into tears after she told him how this gang of anti-communist bashers set upon her husband and beat him quite savagely. I was relieved when I finally found out that Brenda's parents didn't come from Newcastle, and they weren't the same generation as mine. It's been 90 years since the Communist Party was set up in Australia, but in all those years, I've never worked out why it's such a bad idea to give more equal distribution of wealth in this country. Equal distribution of wealth in this country. Equal distribution of wealth. Equal distribution of wealth.